Today we're comparing the Royal Enfield Bear 650 to the new BSA Scrambler 650. We're doing it a bit differently from usual. What we're going to do is split it up into sections. Now we've come out into the town to test the town riding first, then we're going out onto the open roads to test that, and then country lanes and that sort of thing, and then we're going to do an off-road test as well, all in the same video. So we're starting with town riding.
So in the towns, both of these bikes handle nicely. You can weave in and out of traffic with no problems. So both of these bikes would be good in the city. The BSA, this engine, as I've said before when we've ridden the Gold Star, it doesn't like being cold. So when you first get on this bike, the first sort of 5 minutes, you find that initially you don't get anything and then suddenly it snatches. Whereas the Bear is smooth from the get-go. So once this is warmed up for 10 minutes, that problem is gone. So really, I feel like with this bike, you'd want to sit it on your drive and start it up for 5 minutes before you set off, so it's nice and warm and ready to go.
In terms of handling and sharpness of turning and all that sort of thing and braking, they're both very, very good in the city. No issues with either bike. They do feel slightly different going from one to the other, but that's expected, and we'll come on to that a bit more in the video as we go along. Now, to state the obvious, well, it may not be obvious, we just want to say that this Bear has got an aftermarket exhaust on and aftermarket handlebars which are taller and wider. So we are bearing that in mind with our comparison, because the BSA is standard, apart from the accessories that it has. So it's got these bags on, this rack on the back, and it's got the bar end mirrors, which are all accessories, but other than that, it's a standard bike. We've just ridden the bikes out from the town through the countryside on some really fast roads, and I must say this Royal Enfield Bear 650 is phenomenal. I haven't personally ridden it since India, and by Jove, it's a great bike. It really is good, and when you do cane it and go for it on the twisty, windy, faster roads, it's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Love it to bits. Now, the BSA, we jump from one to the other. The BSA is equally brilliant. It really is a great bike. And at one point I really opened it up and got a good bit of speed going, and it does fly. It's a great, great motorcycle to ride. Both of them are brilliant. So far, there's not much between them. Some people have complained about the suspension being hard on the Bear, but going from one to the other, they're very comparable. And it kind of depends on the sort of bumps you're going over. On both of these bikes, on the particular roads we are on today, I did feel the bumps, but it does make it kind of engaging, so I don't mind that at all. So we'll see in a minute how they compare off-road. But when we have ridden the Bear in the past, and people have said about the suspension, I think it depends on your weight. Being heavier, you can press the springs a bit more, and we find it normally quite okay.
Now when you compare these two bikes on paper, there's not a huge amount in it. The BSA produces 55 Nm of torque at 4,000 RPM, and the Bear produces a little bit more torque, but slightly higher in the RPM ranges where it peaks. So it's 56.5 Nm at 5,150. The BSA has slightly less horsepower, 45 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, and the Bear has 47 horsepower at 7,150 RPM. So on paper, everything comes in, or everything peaks a little bit lower in the RPM range on the BSA, but in real life, do you feel that difference? No, you don't. I mean, it's so marginal that you cannot feel a difference really at all in the power delivery. What you feel the main difference in is the characteristics of both of these engines. With this one being a big single and this being a parallel twin, you get a completely different characteristic with both of these bikes. Now, the suspension on both of these bikes, I did feel that the BSA perhaps is marginally softer suspension, very, very slight difference. You wouldn't notice a difference unless you're literally riding them back to back like we have been today. We've been swapping over every 5 minutes to really get the differences. So if you rode one at the dealership and then rode the other one, you probably wouldn't tell the difference. But you do feel the bumps a bit on both of these bikes, but nothing to worry about in my opinion, but we've covered that already. One thing that I think is really worth mentioning, and this is a styling point, is the switchgear. I'm always going on about switchgear, but I love the switchgear on Royal Enfield. They're perfect. They're so beautiful and stunningly styled. Perfect size, perfect shape. They're metal. They're high quality. The switchgear on the BSA are plastic, and they don't really suit the bike. They are a little bit more futuristic. So I do prefer the switchgear on the Royal Enfield.
Oh. Now the seating position, I feel like the foot peg's a little higher up, or the seat's a little lower, one or the other. So my knees are more bent on this bike. So just take that in mind while you see me now. And let's jump on the other one and compare. I think it is, isn't it? Or is there nothing in it? I don't know. It's hard to say. Very, very similar. So the riding position is almost identical, and you know, I am bearing in mind that these are aftermarket handlebars and are higher. So I'd say between them, possibly the Interceptor, Bear Interceptor. It says Interceptor on the side panel. That's why. Well, it is an Interceptor. It's a Bear Interceptor. I think you've got a little bit more space, but not a lot of difference. And this is the standard seat. That's not the standard seat. So those things make, you know, an inch of difference. That could be it.
So coming on to the styling, which is obviously subjective, but we're going to do a little bit of front to back. The mudguard on the Bear, I prefer the shape of this, hugging the tyre more. This one you've got a sort of almost motocross style peak at the front, and then you've got this sort of lower down bit down there, but it doesn't cover back as far as the Bear because you've got an extender on the Bear's one which covers all the way down to the bottom of the wheel, so you're going to get less mud on the bottom of your engine, and of course the radiator on the BSA, because you have got quite a large radiator for the cooling of this bike, whereas on the Royal Enfield obviously it's a different type of engine, but it's a tiny radiator and it's very nicely hidden. So one, you'll get less muck in it, but two, it looks a little bit neater, especially when you look at it from the front. But on the BSA Scrambler, they have added these sort of side bits here on the side of the radiator to hide it from the side. Exhaust. This is obviously an aftermarket exhaust, but the standard exhaust on the Bear is very good looking. I don't think the BSA exhaust on this particular model is as good looking as a standard exhaust on the Bear, but that's my personal preference. Both have got a lovely, beautiful fuel tank, and this colour is absolutely gorgeous. And I didn't like the yellow colour on the Bear because I didn't really like the graphic and I didn't think it went with the blue, whereas this has been done very classically. It's a stunning shade of yellow, a lovely red logo on the side, and the chrome just splits it up beautifully, so that's a very nice colour. The side panel on the BSA I prefer to the standard Bear side panel, but I've changed the Bear side panels to the Interceptor panels for that reason, because I do prefer the way this one looks, but I didn't really like it on the Bear personally. Both engines are very good looking, but I think the Royal Enfield engine is a little bit nicer looking in my opinion. It's a stunning engine. The dial, both have got a digital dial, both are round, both are offset, so both in our opinion should be in the middle, but the Royal Enfield one is tilted a little bit more so that it's easier to read for the rider. The one on the BSA is quite flat, so you can find that you need to lean over a bit sometimes to read it in certain lighting. That is a problem on the Gold Star as well. And when I rode a couple of custom versions of the BSA Gold Star, the dealership had created a bracket to angle it better for the rider so you could see it better. I've had a couple of questions on the channel asking whether these new bars that I got block the vision of the speedometer at all, and I can confirm they don't get in the way at all. So you can still read the dial perfectly well, and it puts you in the perfect riding position. Now both of these bikes in terms of quality are pretty comparable, but certain finer details I think are slightly better on the Royal Enfield. For example, this cover here is plastic and I don't think it looks very nice. It's quite big and chunky, whereas on the Royal Enfield the same thing is a nice metal part. So that does look nicer, and as I said before, the switchgear on here are proper metal, nice switchgear, whereas they are plastic. But other than that, they're pretty much on the same level. So before we carry on and go on to the off-road section, the last thing I want to discuss here is the price, because the BSA is slightly cheaper at £5,999 plus on the road charges, whatever they are. I think they're a couple of £100, but you'll have to ask your dealer. Whereas the Bear is £6,749 starting price. That's including on the road charges.
So we've ridden both bikes off-road now, and to be honest, the differences are negligible. It's like splitting hairs. The main difference is in the feel of the bike. We know you're on a different bike, but in terms of ability, whether on or off-road, they're kind of the same. They're perfectly capable of coming down a green lane like this, and it's hard to see on camera probably how steep some of these bits are. The engine braking's very similar. I thought maybe the BSA had a bit more, but Darcy thought the other way around, so it's very hard to say. Suspension handled everything that we threw at it. We weren't going fast. These are more road tyres than they are off-road tyres, so the grip's not going to be brilliant in the slippery stuff, and it's very sort of dry, powdery mud, and it's actually quite slippery, so we haven't really been caning it at all. But they're perfectly capable for the everyday rider to come off-road and explore, maybe go camping or do whatever you like. Absolutely perfectly good. They're not comparable to a full-out enduro bike or even an enduro bike of old like a Yamaha XT500. You'd find one of those a lot better off-road, and you could really open it up and you'd feel very confident going fast. They're not in that league, but they're certainly totally capable off-road, both of them.
So as the old man said, both of these bikes are very similar in capability off-road. You really couldn't tell the difference in terms of their capability, but they do feel different as bikes. So either of these bikes is a good bet if you want to do a little bit of green laning, some byways. This is a pretty intermediate byway, and you know, these bikes are perfectly fine, and obviously you can ride at the speed that you're comfortable at. If someone is a very, very highly skilled rider, they could definitely go pretty fast across this, and it will soak up the bumps, but of course something that's more capable like an enduro bike is going to be able to fly past you. But really a 650 is a big bike for an off-road bike. And you know, if you really are serious about off-roading, you're probably looking at something like a proper full-out enduro bike, or a Honda CRF 300L, for example, that's more much more suspension and softer, much more travel, a lighter bike with a smaller engine that's, you know, easier to handle because it's much lighter. So these bikes are very much road going bikes that have a bit of off-road capability. You've got that proper old school retro scrambler looks, which look awesome. So wherever you show up to a coffee shop or a pub or anything like that, people are going to talk to you about these bikes, which we have experienced today in the town. 3 or 4 people came up to us in a space of 20 minutes to talk about these bikes, 2 of which were subscribers. We couldn't believe it, in the middle of nowhere. So thanks for everyone who subscribes. If you do see us in the public, make sure you say hello. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe.